Final Fantasy VII Rebirth continues to push the trilogy and the series as a whole onto new heights with what seems to be boundless innovation and freedom handed to us on a silver platter courtesy of the modern age. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade brought us into the heart of Midgar, a city steeped in corruption, conflict, and mystery, but now the world has opened up. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is part 2 of this 3-part trilogy, and it takes what we learned from the remake and turns it on its head. If you're new to the series, or just jumping in after the remake Intergrade, it is essential that you understand Rebirth, what it is, what it builds on, and why it's the greatest remake to ever happen in my opinion. So sit back and relax for a few. Subscribe if you're new for more RPG content, and here's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Rebirth is the second chapter in our 3-part trilogy, following the events of Intergrade, where we broke free from the Whisper's linear path of fate, while also making our escape from Midgar. This is a world where we are no longer bound by fate, but don't think that there aren't any consequences. The world of Final Fantasy VII is expanded ever more so from the linear and sometimes claustrophobic streets of Midgar to a wide and open world just waiting to be explored. With Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we are brought to so many varying regions, each with something unique about it, whether it's the locals or that wildlife. Combat has been elevated as new mechanics have been introduced into Rebirth that change how you and your companions fight. New ways to interact with your party, as Rebirth had some persona added into the mix as far as character relationships. Our story is only starting to truly shape up as Sephiroth takes more of a prominent role in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where questions aren't answered, coupled with unpredictable plot twists. Several new regions are introduced, such as the Grasslands, which is the first region we settle after our escape from Midgar, Junon, a military installation occupied by Shinra. They built their elevated airfield above the old town of below Junon, blocking out the sun reminiscent of Midgar. Oral, what once was a mining region and home to one of our party members, Barrett Wallace, Shinra destroyed the village and the community was forced to relocate. Gangaga, a village that was once home to Zack Fair, but we don't really spend too much time here, unfortunately, or at least I didn't. We also have the Cosmo Canyon, which is the hometown of Red 13, who we learn his real name is Nanaki. It's an important place as this is where many from around the world come to study planetology. It's also where we learn the origins of the universe. We also have Nibble, that this is the home region of Cloud and Tifa. This region's main feature is that it's just all mountains and rocky, split into two, with one side having Nibelheim, where we'll spend most of that chapter, and then you have the Mako reactor on the other side. Later in the game, we access the Meridian Ocean, which opens up the world fully, allowing us to travel by sea all the way to the Temple of the Cetra. The shift from the tight, claustrophobic Midgar to the open environments is massive, as within the open world are secrets to be uncovered that in reward grant world-building lore. Side quests are also as big, as they can deepen your relationship with your party. The people at Square Enix did well incorporating the open world into your playthrough. For example, with each region that you play through, you have to get that region's Chocobo via the Chocobo Ranch to enable features such as fast traveling, but they make it intuitive because in some regions, as you're entering for the first time, the Chocobo Ranch would be right as you enter the main area, and the side quest to obtain that region's Chocobo doesn't even take that long, probably like 5 to 7 minutes max. This open-ended exploration, plus we have mini-games such as the card game Queen's Blood, mark classic RPG elements coming back into the fold. For a good amount of Rebirth, especially at the beginning of the game, has us revisiting Cloud's character arc and his pseudo-identity crisis, with the retelling of the events that occurred at Nibelheim, only for Tifa to say that she doesn't remember Cloud being in Nibelheim 5 years ago. This is something we're going to touch back on in the future, as this is an event that has been tampered with by Sephiroth, but we know that he was there. There's a focus on this chapter in regards to deepening our relationship with Tifa, Aerith, and Barrett, as throughout the game, Cloud has his own one-on-one time with his companions, whether it's Tifa wanting Cloud to open up about his past and their private hours, to Aerith and Cloud's multiple dates, but we can't forget that in the beginning of the remake, it was Barrett that recruited Cloud, and for some time before we got to 7th Heaven, it was just us, Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. Tensions are higher than ever between Cloud and Sephiroth, who plays more of a direct role in this game, whether it's through his avatars, who he can use to manifest himself, or control key points in the game. We know that if Sephiroth is free to do whatever, then a meteor will eventually come crashing into the earth, as shown to us in Rebirth. We don't know how he does it, and what leads up to that point. All we have to go off of is one word: reunion. Cloud still has recurring hallucinations and memory distortions through the game that makes him question if what he is seeing is even real. For example, we see in the early game Cloud succumbing to the influence of Sephiroth as he makes Cloud question if Tifa is even real, because Sephiroth gave her what would be a mortal wound, now claims that the wound isn't even there and makes Cloud question Tifa. It's these types of things that makes us, even as the player, wonder what is real and what has been altered. Our party grows as characters we meet along the way become members of our party to play as, like Red 13, who we helped escape Shinra Labs back in the remake. I love the dynamic between him and Barrett because it's like they despise each other, but certain interactions make it more playful than hateful when you compare it to how he interacts with other party members. Red 13 plays more of a vanguard where he can be tanky and deal good amounts of damage, especially with his vengeance mode, which gives even more of a damage boost and ability to siphon damage as health later on in the game. And with Howling Moon, you can make it last even longer. And Kate Sith, and you should already know this, but is a robot being controlled by Reeves from Shinra. The group is wary on trusting him for a while, especially Barrett, and he's right as we see later on when Kate betrays us for Shinra. I will say that towards the end of the game, Kate does have his redemption after Cloud takes the Black Materia. I honestly god hate this character, as it feels like he's supposed to play like Aerith, but like with more offensive capabilities, like a Spellblade or some shit. But his mechanics are just so bad, and don't even get me started on his box section in Chapter 12. The long anticipated return of the GOAT, Vincent Valentine, makes a return in such a fantastic way, as we actually get to fight him towards the end of Chapter 12, and as he emerges from his coffin, he's just giving aura. He joins us on our journey, and I like this part especially because you get the dialogue option before when he asks you who the enemies are, and I said Sephiroth. Vincent is the loner of the group as described by Tifa, Barrett, and Aerith when we get back to Costa del Sol via the Meridian. But I'm almost positive we'll see more of his character in the third part and actually play as Vincent. I mentioned that Rebirth has some persona elements added, and what I mean is in Rebirth, character growth is expanded upon through more activities such as side quests and bonding mechanics, such as synergy for example, but we'll talk about that later. There are dialogue options throughout the game that will affect your relationship with certain characters. So for example, I fucked up the dialogue option in Nibelheim for Aerith, and because of that, my bond level went down with her, and in return, it was Tifa instead of Aerith at the levelist portion of the game. It's innovation like this that really makes me appreciate what the devs have done and the time I've carefully spent in this cultivated world. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth further refines and expands on the already amazing hybrid real-time command-based combat with the return of folios, which a lot of you will recall. These are how I would like to describe as passives that you can tailor to a specific character to enhance your individual playstyle. These come with a variety such as plus 300 HP, 15% less elemental damage towards you, 5% more damage when performing basic attacks, an ATB gauge filling faster at the start of battle. These are your bread and butter, and you can always reset and reconfigure the folio of a certain character to synergize better. Speaking of synergizing, Synergy is a brand new team-based mechanic that emphasizes party cooperation. This is so rewarding if you play Classic like me, where you're constantly switching through characters in battle, trying to figure out how to make the best use of that one ATB bar that can be salvation or disaster. No longer are we bound by our feet as we finally have access to chocobos in the open world. And as I mentioned before, you must acquire each region's designated chocobo, but it's not even a hassle. As you explore the open world, or even during our scenarios, you may have to think outside the box in order to reach new areas such as climbing vines, grappling, or even rock climbing. Crafting makes a return, and this is huge because you're already collecting materials whether it's intentionally or passively, and these can be used to create things such as potions, armor for your party, ether, sometimes quest items even. There's a lot, and it's all according to your crafting level. In the Final Fantasy VII Remake, we broke free from the grip of fate the Whispers had on us, and in return, we are now in a world no longer bound by destiny. So how I like to view this is, we know in the original timeline Zack dies and all that, and in the second timeline that was created from us breaking free from the Whispers, the comet is already fated to crash upon the Earth. But at this timeline that we play in during Rebirth is the third timeline where anything can go, as you saw towards the end of the game because Aerith came back. This is a crazy theory, but it makes so much sense to me, especially from Remake until the end of Rebirth. And it's even confirmed in the end by Sephiroth when he says, different worlds, but same shit. The glitches and events or Cloud's memory we have an answer for, as this happens when reality is being altered with mainly by Sephiroth, or part of the reunion, a power he has thanks to the Black Whispers. I already mentioned earlier how Cloud manipulated Sephiroth into thinking for a second that Tifa wasn't real, so I'll talk about how at the end of Rebirth when Aerith dies, We see this rainbow filter, and then Cloud stops Sephiroth's blade, right? Well, no, this is an illusion happening in Cloud's head, followed by a memory lapse, followed by a tone shift in music, where reality sets in and Aerith's bloody body lays upon us. It's even more blunt that things aren't always as we perceive them as when Tifa arrives and another distortion happens. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth honors the original 1997 legend while reinterpreting key events, such as I believe it was Chapter 8 that focused on Barret and Dyne, where in the original Barret tells Dyne that Marlene is alive, but Dyne still commits suicide. In Rebirth, Chapter 8 ends with Barret confronting Dyne about calling all those people at the Golden Saucer, which he did in the original. But in Rebirth, it ends with an emotional boss fight between two old friends. Dyne dies in Barret's arms, and his wails honestly shook me in that moment. Whoever voice acted for Barret absolutely killed it. You remember how I said at the beginning of the video that Cloud was in Nibelheim? Well, it was shown to us that during the events of Crisis Core, Cloud was actually an infantryman that would eventually be the one to stand against Sephiroth and throw him into the lifestream. I'm still convinced of my multi-timeline theory, and I believe that in the third part we will be able to play in these different worlds, as Sephiroth said, as worlds must become one, must they also depart. And in that last boss fight, we played in like 3 different dimensions, including the one Zack was in, and I believe that the Aerith that we saw at the end of the game is the Aerith from the second timeline. Not the first timeline where the original Final Fantasy VII occurred, but the second one. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth offers a mix of nostalgia and innovation for fans both old and new, seeing characters that are familiar to us but in unfamiliar situations. A deep character-driven story is presented to us in such a way that redefines what a remake could be moving forward. The freedom that the game offers from the open world, the discoveries you make through sometimes challenging puzzles that you have to think outside the box, all of it just leaves me in complete shock and awe. This isn't just a continuation, it's a transformation. Whether you're following from Intergrade or playing for the first time, Rebirth is your invitation to step 1 into one of the richest RPG universes ever created. Even more so when the game gives you the option to catch up on the story when you boot up Rebirth for the first time. A lot of people say that Final Fantasy VII is overrated, and me personally, I'm more of a 13 kind of guy. But this is one story that sticks close to me. Let me ask you, so what would you like to see in the third part? Me personally, it'd be cool if we could play in the other timelines for certain segments, but I don't think we have any word. Anything can happen in this timeline, so what would you like to see in the third part? Leave a comment and subscribe for more RPG deep dives.